You know, this time of year, these fish are getting so shallow that a topwater is one of the very best choices. And you know, there's a lot of different baits you can throw. You know, right now I'm throwing a buzzbait because I'm trying to cover such a vast amount of water. You know, if I knew right where the bass were sitting, if they were like on one key little tip of a point, it's hard to beat a sexy dog in this situation. And a lot of what I look at when I'm picking, you know, one bait over another, or how I'm gonna have my topwater setup go, is the water clarity and the forage base. So I mean, these fish are up there feeding on gizzard shad, so they like a big bait or a bigger profile bait, and the water's just gin clear. And I mean, a lot of it, they're up there in less than a foot of water. I can't even run the trolling motor that far. So having something that's natural and moving fast so they don't get too good a look at it is critical. So I'm just, you know, being able to long cast that buzzbait is a real advantage, because I literally cannot get close enough to a lot of these fish with it. And I'm trying to cover a lot of water. I don't know exactly where they're at. Now, if I was fishing where they were related to an isolated target, you know, like maybe there was bushes in the water or clumps of grass, you know, I might throw a KVD splash, you know, a popper. You know, there's something about that popper with a feather tail that is just super attractive to them, you know, and that subtle walking action and the blooping that it makes. I love a popper. It's one of my favorite topwaters. But when you have these vast shallow flats and these fish are just roaming, it's basically just gravel out there. You know, you got to have something that you're efficient with, and having this buzzbait it really allows me to do it. I can cast it a mile with this setup right here. You know, one of the hottest things going on the tours is buzzbaits with toad type trailers. And you know, I've thrown like that quite a bit. It's pretty easy to do. But what I found here is having something even a little subtler really is paying off. So this is just a rage tail grub on the back of a tour grade buzzbait, and I've got one half of that tail cut off on there, and it's got that fast kicking action, so they don't get too good a look at it. I'm moving it real fast. You know, if you run it real slow, they're just not biting it, and this is just a great way to do it. Now, if the water was a little more colored up, so this is the new Strike King Toad, and I've got it just on a tour grade buzzer, and you know, it's got those kicking legs. And the great thing about these is it's got that flat body, so it helps plane the bait out, but it's heavy too. I mean, it cuts the wind real well. So compared to a skirt that makes it hard to throw a long ways, if you add that plastic on there, it adds weight to it and it cuts the wind real well. I can throw it farther. It adds some buoyancy to it. And this has a big profile, you know, I mean, for these big gizzard shad, especially in low light, it's hard to beat that black. You know, the white is really good during the day when they're, you know, up there real shallow, and see if we got any wind in that. But now is the time when you know, black bait can be really good. So, but just having something like this that has that small profile that I can cast a long ways is a real advantage with a buzzbait. You know, for this, I want a setup that I can cast a long ways. I've got my own signature 7:3 to 1 gear ratio reel, you know, so it makes it easy to cover all this water. I've got on a 7.5 foot medium heavy action rod, and I'm throwing it with 20-pound test fluorocarbon line. So it's a setup that I can cast a long ways. You know, it's a 3/8 ounce tour grade buzzbait, and I've just got that menace grub on there, or half of a menace grub, and it just allows for a really good distance and, you know, a pretty fast pace on your retrieve. Typically, when I'm throwing a buzzbait, especially around targets, you know, in stained water, you're throwing it around grass or pads or stumps or bushes or something like that. I want to keep that bait just moving as slow as I can to keep it close to those targets, to just antagonize the bass into biting. Up here, it's clear, it's open water. I got to make the bait move fast so they don't get too good a look at it, and that way they'll eat it a lot better. So, you know, another thing that is something that I always do with my buzzbaits is crimp that rivet behind the blade so it can't spin. And I'll rough up the back of that blade there so I've got aluminum to aluminum contact, and that makes that thing really squeak. I love the squeak, you know, I mean, you can get clackers, you can get a lot of things, but when you're fishing in open water like this, in clear water, I want the squeal of that buzzbait. So having that aluminum to aluminum contact is really critical. So I'll just take a pair of pliers and again, just crimp that rivet so it can't spin on the blade, and then I just kind of make sure it's flat and rough it up just a little bit and rough the back of that blade up. And you know, people say hang them out the window and do things like that, but you got to knock that chrome off the back and that just allows me to wear that in real quick. So within just a matter of minutes, you can get a good squeak out of it, good squeal out of it. And that's what the bass really can't stand.